originally told, is actually it's that part X provides the inner resistance to make you stronger as well. Now, I didn't really get this until probably the last 2 weeks, as I've been doing a lot of research into this, because we are going to be doing a course on this in the Heroic Man.
It goes on with me. Part X is saying, hey, have a little cheeky look at Facebook, see what's going on, right? And then like, oh yeah, that's cool. Scroll, like, engage, 10 minutes, 20 minutes later. Then I'm like, then my conscience kicks in. Fuck, like, hang on a minute, mate, what are you doing? Get back.
Welcome to the Awaken Man podcast. Peter, how are you doing?
Peter? Yeah, good. How are you doing? And what are we talking about today?
We are talking about something that is going to change the game for you guys out there. And we're going to be talking about Part X. Now, I've been going a mile deep on Part X over the last 20 years of my life. But I only discovered the concept around about 2 years ago when I started working with Yassine as a coaching client. And he mentioned to me these two famous Hollywood psychotherapists called Barry Michaels and Phil Stutz. And just part of what I do with the Awaken Man, and we've had incredible guests on, is what's called the Third Door Challenge. So if you've read The Third Door by Alex Banayan, it's a really good book for any of you guys who are listening who've got businesses. It's where you reach out to people in exceptional levels of personal or professional performance and just ask them to come in, speak to your colleagues, your co-workers. For us, we get guys to come in and speak to the Awaken Man group. And I reached out to Barry Michaels. I said, listen, I run a men's group. We're trying to optimize ourselves in business, in our professional lives, in our relationships, and I've discovered the tools. And he agreed to come on. And this guy is like, his clients include Jeff Bezos, Jay-Z, Gwyneth Paltrow, all the kind of famous business moguls, who's who of Hollywood, creative geniuses. And he taught us about this concept called Part X. And for me, and for the guys on the Awaken Man call, Pete was on there as well. He can give you his take in a second. It was the first time I could wrap a lot of the things in my life that had been holding me back into this kind of really easily digestible concept. And on today's call, on today's podcast, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going in, I'd say, half a mile deep on Part X, so you can really understand what your inner enemy is and how you'll see it as clear as day. How it is, I'm going to swear, so you might want to just, if you've got children in the car, turn it down, but how it's fucking up your life. And if you don't get a handle on it, it wins every single time. And I don't often swear on the podcast, but it's the only way to put it. I'm really excited to be sharing about this because I've been recently mentored by Kristen, who's Barry's kind of co-worker, and she's just helped me see so much about this in myself and clients. And so I want to give this to you to help you start fighting a battle that can mean deeper relationships, more productivity, all sorts of changes to your weight and your personal performance. There's so much you'll get from this podcast. So really be present as we wade through this today.
Yeah. Powerful. And just to clarify, like Ben, what is the definition of Part X?
Okay.
Like if you were to give just a clear, simple one-liner.
A one-liner, it's a part of our psyche which is there to X out our potential. Now,
there you go. It's the inner enemy, right? It's that inner voice that looks to fuck you up and put you down.
Yeah, it is.
And it's always there. Yeah, that one.
It is.
That motherfucker.
Yeah, there's going to be some swearing on today's podcast, so it might not be.
I always swear anyway, so I think the guys who listen are used to it.
But it brings out the devil in us, right? We'll talk about the devil in today's session, right? Let me just explain this the way that it best landed for me. Now, Peter's the same. I call Pete a force of nature. He's a guy that is a force of nature. I'm a force of nature. Put me in front of an audience, put me in front of a group, I show up and I can tell them all sorts of stuff about personal development. I can help people change people's lives in a matter of moments. I've got a huge force for growth inside me. Now, if you think about it, we learned this in, kind of GCSE physics, that Newton's law, right? For every force, there is an equal and opposing force. So if I've got this inside me, this force for growth, for impact, for connection, for self-betterment, it's going to be met with an equal and opposing force, which is Part X. Now that Part X is there to shut that down. So in any opportunities where I can grow, either in my relationship or in my business or in my fitness or all types of arenas, Part X is going to weaponize certain things that I think about or in things that happen in my environment to stop me from moving forwards. And that was really, it made a lot of sense to me when it was explained like that, because it seemed like when I first heard it, I was like, this just seems like, what, there's a part of me that is there to purely to sabotage my good sides, my good parts, my desire for growth. What, there's an actual part of me that does that. And the more I've learned about it, the more it makes a lot of sense in terms of how we've developed as humans, our negative brain, our natural bias. But equally, I can see it. I can see it in myself. I can see it in clients as well. So
I just got a question. Like, would you say the part X is there to keep us safe? Like the fight or flight or freeze. Freeze is my one, by the way, guys. I fucking freeze, right? Fight, flight, or freeze. Is part X the type of part of our brain that is there to keep us safe, or is it like this is a different part altogether?
from what I understand, is that like the ancient human threat was, the saber-toothed tiger, the snake, the spider, the bush twitched. You had to run 100 out of 100 times or you might get eaten. That was the world that we evolved in. The modern human threat, that doesn't exist. The biggest threat to a modern human is psychopathology, which is anxiety, depression, the modern ailments of humans, gaining too much weight, getting cancer. That's the biggest threat to us now. So what the brain is there, especially the part of the brain that is there to keep us the same and safe, it's there to literally hang on to negative things in our environment and make them so we never have to endure the pain of suffering to the point where we die. It's like, we've got to drink water, we've got to eat, we've got to have sex and procreate, we've got to make sure we're safe. The best way the brain knows how to do that is to make tomorrow exactly the same as today. And so when I'm trying to grow my life, whether it's my business, whether it's my relationship, whether I want to change, I've just moved to Dubai, that's extremely taxing for the brain. I remember when I first moved here, it was like I was quite tired from there's so much to learn moving over here. That for the brain is a freaking nightmare. So what part X, in my kind of understanding of it, is there to do is to make sure you don't make too many changes in your life.
Yeah, I know that one of the biggest revelations for me on learning about part X is, like you, this was a couple of years ago, and it was just being able to put a name to it. And we talk about this quite a lot. It's like just you being able to highlight an awareness can take it from like a level 100, level 90 down to like a level 50 on in terms of how much it impacts you and fucks you up, right? So I'm looking at the notes here for the podcast. The notes are epic, by the way, guys. So stay tuned, right? Because we're going to go through scenarios of like where this comes up, and it will really help you guys to understand like, okay, that's what part X is, and here's like some examples of where that's playing in your life, and then you'll be able to spot it, and then you go, here it is part X again, right? And then you're able to tame that.
Yeah, you're dead on there, Pete. Name it to tame it. Yeah, that's the thing. And, I was speaking to Pete before the podcast, and I do believe this is an integral part of being an awakened man, is realizing that you are on a hero's journey. We talk about what is an awakened man. It's not a destination, it's a journey. Like we say to the guys, we're all on the path. Even you've seen, we talked about this, that's the North Star for us, all of us guys who are trying to become an awakened man. We've got awakened relationships, awakened businesses, awakened finances. And the first part of the journey is realizing that part X, this part of us, is currently probably winning or running the show, where we have self-sabotaging behaviors that are limiting our potential.
I was just thinking about, a lot of the work that we talk about and that we do with the guys is helping you master your own psychology, helping you like master your own mental environment. And this part X is a piece of that puzzle, right? And there are tools to be able to help you begin to understand what's going on up there. Because once you can understand it, so you can then tame it, right? And then you can master it.
Yeah. And this is what's so lovely about it. It's a very simple concept. And as we go into it now, you'll start to see it. And the first part of this process is labeling it. That's that part of me that Ben was talking about on the podcast. Right. I can see it now. This is sorry about the bad news, right? There's this idea in Greek mythology, or there's a story called Sisyphus, and it's about this guy who rolls a boulder up a hill, and the boulder rolls back down. He has to eternally just roll this boulder up the hill. And the way that that's sometimes told is that struggle of constantly having to work and then come back down, constantly having to go up and come back down, is futile. It's a curse. However, that isn't the full story. It's not the way the story was originally told. It's actually it's the part X provides the inner resistance to make you stronger as well. Now, I didn't really get this until probably the last 2 weeks, as I've been doing a lot of research into this, because we are going to be doing a course on this in the Heroic Man. I wanted to really go a mile deep on this to really understand why it existed. So what the end of this podcast is that you'll realize that Part X is never going to go away, but what it's going to give you is an opportunity to almost like judo, to roll, to, guys do the jiu-jitsu. It's an opportunity to do this with your own psyche to get stronger. And every time you battle Part X and you see it show up and you fight it, you get that little bit stronger and you can deal with more. Now, I thought that, I've given up alcohol, I've given up drugs, I've given up partying, I've given up so much of my vices in my life that I would have used in the past as part of my impulse-driven behavior. And I thought doing that would have led to me not having a Part X. I was like, we heard guys in the program when we introduced this concept saying, I'm going to kill Part X. I'm like, sorry, that got some bearer of bad news. It never goes away. It will just morph into different things. And that made a lot of sense as well, because how come Jay-Z is going to seek therapy from Phil Stutz, Barry Michaels? Why do these people at the top of their game still struggle? Why are they not exonerated from struggle? Like, right, that makes so much sense. And so no matter how high you climb in your work, in your relationship, you're always going to face this inner enemy.
Yeah. And the mastery level to this is being able to spot the Part X coming up and going, okay, now I know he's here. This is an opportunity for growth, right? The reason Part X comes up is he wants to keep you comfortable, wants to keep you small. More often than not, this is an opportunity to grow. So it's like, okay, what can I, like, this is coming up now. This has triggered me now. What can I lean into? Because it's probably scary. There's probably some insecurity here. There's probably some fear here. And I need to lean into this to grow.
Yes. So let me just give you a situation before we go into the scenarios. That every time I sit at my desk, I've got an opportunity for growth. If my phone is next to me in the morning, I can find myself picking up my phone, not, acting upon impulse and checking through Facebook. 10 minutes can go before I realize that I've actually been scrolling. What Part X is using is weaponizing my attention by fracturing it to tiny little pieces. And then I look back over that hour and I've done fuck all, done nothing. I'm really, really angry at myself for wasting that hour. Now that, it's happening to me less and less and less. But now I spot it and I'll throw my phone and I'll crack on. And so this can be the same thing if you're a guy that's addicted to drama. So if you've got an important project, you've got something that's big happening in your life, and then all of a sudden you can't control your impulse to go and have an argument with your wife or your kids. You've created all this drama and you've reacted to all this drama, and then that exonerates you from going to have to do the work that you had to do. And I spotted that and I was like, oh my God, I could see parts of that in myself. And I was like, oh my God, but more so I could see it in my clients. And I was like, do you realize you reacting to this over the last, say, 3 weeks has stopped you from moving forward with this project? I said to a guy last night and he was like, oh my God, you're right. This has stopped me from doing that thing that I knew that was, because he launched a program whilst he was on Awaken Man and he made like 40K. But there's been this whole drama that's been going on that he's been reacting to. But whilst he's been reacting to that, not controlling his impulses, he hasn't done the thing that he knows is going to grow him. So this is how it starts to manifest in business struggles and relationship struggles as well.
Yeah, just to go back to what you said at the start there, like your example about being on your phone. So you sit at your desk, you be at your phone. So that's like, I'm just playing this out in my head, right? This goes on with me. Part X is saying, hey, have a little cheeky look at Facebook, see what's going on, right? And then like, oh yeah, that's cool. Scroll, like, engage, 10 minutes, 20 minutes later. Then I'm like, then my conscience kicks in, fuck, like, hang on a minute, mate, what are you doing? Get back to work, throw the phone. Then Part X comes back in and says, hey, you dickhead, you just wasted 20 minutes there. Why did you just waste 20 minutes? Now you haven't got the full hour. Oh, we've got to leave in 10 minutes anyway. What's the point? Idiot. You've just... Right. So it's like it wants you to do the thing. Yeah. Then when you stop doing the thing, it then makes you feel bad for doing the thing.
Yes, you've nailed it. It's very, very, very articulated that really well. And that's what you'll be experiencing. It's that, do you know what? One won't harm. One won't harm. So it's like we all have impulses. While it may seem somewhat harmless to give into one in the short term, like it's not the end of the world to have one slice of cake, but it's the pattern of giving into the harmless urge that has serious long-term life consequences. That's what erodes your confidence. And like that for me, when I heard that, I heard that, I was like, all right, okay. And when people say it all the time, oh, one piece won't hurt you, but it's you breaking your word time and time again, which is how the devil works. If you look in the spiritual teaching of what part X is, the devil, and it keeps testing you with tiny amounts of little things, a little bit of money, a little bit of fame, a little bit of, matters of the flesh. It can be temptation through alcohol, it can be temptation through other women. All these little things are constantly tempting you, but you just giving in a little bit often leads to, oh, well, you've done it before, you'll do it again.
And then you punish yourself later on. Like that one extra slice of cake, and it ended up being 2 or 3. Then I had a shit night's sleep. Then I felt bloated the next day. And then you're like, why did I eat that bloody piece of cake? You've done it again, Pete.
Yeah. Well, if you think about this, right, if you overindulge in cake, and I know Pete is like, we've had conversations before about this, like when you've gone out I remember you stag do, and you had, well, I think you won one wine or something. You had one wine, and you were crippled because Pete doesn't drink, but infrequently. I know that much now. I think have you knocked it on the head entirely now?
No, not entirely. Like I might have a glass or 2 a year.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
and it's only like super like special occasion sort of thing. Or do you know what? I'll have one sort of thing. But
yeah, case in point, something like that. You have that one wine, but it's going to give you gut pain, might be up all night, terrible sleep. So what happens is that quite helpfully means that you can't move forward tomorrow. And this is where you've got to slow down your decisions. And after, we delivered this training, what we've gone through today to the Waking Man yesterday, and the guys just started saying like, holy shit, I can see this. I can really see this. I've done this so many times. I've gone out just before a big event or big opportunity and gone and got wrecked. So I can't be at my best the following day. And then I've used that for a reason why I haven't got what I wanted. But guess who won in that moment? Part X. Now, the way that it fits in this is that you are all on a hero's journey, and you're going to be going through parts of your life where there's struggle, there's search, you get clear plans, you do the work, and you get a reward. And at every single threshold, part X will show up to stop you from moving forwards. So this could be where you are getting great success, and then you'll sabotage your behavior. You'll be on a roll, then all of a sudden, you'll sabotage you'll do something stupid, you take your foot off the gas, you'll stop prioritizing the things that you're prioritizing. So it explains a lot. So just what I want to do now, Pete, I want to just segue and go straight into the 4 key weapons of part X, so we can get this in, be slow with it, because if we do this on this podcast, I feel that you'll walk away from listening to this with a lot of clarity.
Okay, let's go into them. Let's hit it.
Let's go. Let's hit it. Right. So the first one is self-gratification. So one of the ways that you will, this is one of the most covert ways that part X operates. It's giving into impulsivity. So watching that extra 30 minutes of TV, Netflix. Now, if you think about what the modern media is doing, it's kind of weaponizing your attention against you. Like if you look at Netflix now, it counts 5 seconds before it plays the next episode. I'm surprised it's not getting shorter. Yeah, it hooks you from one episode to the next. But what happens is, deep down that impulse to watch the next episode is going to sabotage your attention, your sleep, how you feel tomorrow. Another way is I'll just check my phone when you're with the kids. So you're a parent and you find yourself scrolling. I didn't nearly, but I had a minor breakdown and through on the Wake Man call the other day where I was just really, really present with the fact my daughter was looking at me, and she's 6 months old, and I was looking at my phone. And I was watching something, and she was there smiling at me, and I was like, I was in so much pain. I committed to the man to never let that happen again and do my absolute best. But that is exactly what's going on. It's taking your attention away from the moment. I can just actually, this is a big one for a lot of people. I can do more than one task at a time. So you'll have 3 or 4 tabs, and you'll be doing 2 or 3 tasks at the same time, and you get nothing done. So you don't have the potency to move forward with any of them. Do you recognize any of them, Pete? Yeah.
Recently, I've got into watching The Office in an evening. So it's like my wind down. I'll put a couple of episodes of The Office on, but The Office is 20 minutes, right? It's so good, and there's so many episodes per season. It's incredibly easy to go, do you know what? I'll just watch. Oh, the next one's coming on in 5 seconds. I'll do another, right? And then before I know it, I'm like, oh fuck, it's 9 o'clock. I should be tucked up. Right? And I'm not.
And think about this, right? Parents are worried about their kids being reactive, ADHD, not learning properly. But the demonstrations of a lot of parents these days are giving into fast food impulses, giving into gambling, giving into spending, giving into arguments. They can't demonstrate self-control. Now, self-control is the pathway to self-confidence. The discipline equals freedom, as Jocko Willink says it.
I'm looking through, especially this self-gratification, watching more TV, TV, just one more time won't matter. I'll check my phone, I'll scroll my phone. I can do multiple tasks at once. This all comes down to self-discipline. Like if your discipline is fucking resilient, like you're strong, you know what the boundaries are. It's like, hey, I've got a problem with the phone, I need to be disciplined with the phone and not go on that. Hey, I've got a problem with the TV, I need to be disciplined that I need to be in bed by 9 and get my 9 hours or 8 hours, whatever. Right, you know what these are and you're disciplined to that. So the muscle there is working on the discipline as well, right?
Absolutely. The next one is the way that you'll see part X working against you is lethargy. It's convincing yourself you don't have the energy. So you wake up in the morning, I'm too tired to go to the gym. I can't get through the day without 2 or 3 coffees. I've been there. Well, unless I have my second coffee, how am I going to be able to cope at 4 p.m. when I've got the awakened ankle? It's like, so it's robbing you of this self-generated natural energy, life force that we all have. You can't possibly reach that target, so why even bother? Yeah, that run you're going to go on, it's going to be really difficult, so don't even put your shoes on. It could be that project that's going to get you so much money, so much leverage. We talked about the heroic man. That's such an incredible project that we're going to be creating. And actually, my part X at the foot of it is like, oh my God, there's so much to do on that. But I can see it now. That's my part X working against me saying, Ben, don't start that. It's a big task. It's so much. And that's my part X going, don't do it. Whereas actually, I needed to bring my whole self to that. I was like, bring my full self to this project and I'll get it done. When I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, I talked to Kristen about it. I was like, oh my God, I've just realized that's my part X. And she said, yeah, this is amazing to see that how you can recognize it now. So every time I can see a big project and me contracting at the foot of it, like the bottom of a mountain, I just like, this is my part X.
You can see how this will mess with entrepreneurs and business owners in their like financial growth, right? In like, you can't reach that target, or you shouldn't do that project. Like, oh, we'll just delay that project. We'll stall it, right? Stall. Yeah, I didn't really thought about it from like a business perspective before. I'd always thought it from just like personal performance. But actually, yeah, you're bang on there. And this could affect just your whole business's growth, right? Especially if you're the leader of the company and there's these internal things going on subconsciously.
Pete, you're already overwhelmed. Don't do that. And then you're like, no, but I know it's going to be the thing that sometimes we put something on our plate and it forces us to make that change. We can talk about that on a whole podcast. But okay, we've got 2 more. Let's make sure we get these in. So scenario 3, this is a powerful one, is demoralization. So turning normal discouragement into hopelessness. So this is where just a knockback is turned into forever disappointment. So that one date you go on that's bad and you give up dating. That one sales call that you do and you say, I'm terrible at sales. This is over calibrating. So instead of experiencing disappointment and then going back in and having to go again and again and again, you live disappointed instead of being disappointed. And I was like, wow, that was a big one. You just get into this place of hopelessness.
Well, it's a victim mindset, isn't it? It's victimhood, right? Or like we like to say, you're talking victimese, right? Both externally and internally, right? The words you're saying, you sound like a victim there. But being a victim is so easy. It's incredibly easy to start talking that language. And then it's incredibly easy to then pick up a load of other guys and girls that will also talk the same language as you. And then we can all cultivate in that victim language. Right.
Good point.
So I can see how this one is a real biggie, because even just like that alone, like you're able to catch yourself when you're going into victim mode and go, actually, let me just spin this. I need to take ownership of this. Let me talk ownish. Let's go into ownership. There's a huge shift. And I absolutely see this with the guys that like go through like the projects and the programs that we do. When they take ownership, they get such amazing results. When the victim comes in, you can see when they start to diminish is when victimhood comes in.
Yeah, you nailed it. It's just really that creating that despair, like nothing's going to work for me. There's no way forward for me. Why bother? Because I literally can't find the answer. That is all part X. And the final scenario I've like seen this a lot recently, is holding on to negative emotion. So like we said before, if I create a load of drama and then react to that drama, I can then I give myself permission not to move forwards. How could I possibly move forward with all of this drama I'm reacting to in my life? I think we did I don't know if we've done the Masks of Fear training on the podcast, but the Mask of Fear is the drama seeker. Now, what happens is you get these powerful, primitive emotions. If I can get myself to this place where I'm angry, pissed off, rageful, resentful, and I'm in this pool of resent, there's no possible way I can move forward to that project that's going to improve my life. Now, guess who's won in that situation? Part X. And what we talk about a lot in the Awakened Man about is this idea of comfort versus growth. Now, in any given moment, we can move forward into growth or back into comfort. Well, actually, if I stay angry at Pete for months on end, weeks on end, and I don't really have it out with him, which is uncomfortable, the growth decision, it allows me just to stay in this kind of uncomfortable but same old comfortable place, what I call catabolic discomfort, where things are uncomfortable, but you know that discomfort. You know what being overweight is like. It's uncomfortable, but you know that discomfort. So what you've got to look for is powerful, primitive feelings. As I was writing this the other day, me and Poppy had an altercation. I got really angry with her. I actually shouted at her. I shouted at her for a while, and she shouted back, and we didn't speak to each other for about 5 minutes, maybe 10. No, actually, it was a whole work block. And as I was writing this, I was like, I'm going to have to go and remedy that conversation now. And I said, I went and apologized. And I just realized that if in an old situation for me would have been to hang on to that negative emotion all day, and that would have probably ruined the quality of my work.
Yeah, this is huge work on for me. And I like coined this as a virtue and a value of emotional resilience, right? And being able to spot it when this comes up. So when I get an emotional trigger or I get a feeling that is negative, right, is to be able to spot that and then to be able to pause, because this is my emotional brain coming in, right? And then fucking it's going all over the place and trying to spin this into using some logic to say, okay, well, what is the situation? If I was to look at this from a logical perspective, this is just facts and figures and data rather than emotions. What is this? Are my emotions valid? Like, it's about detaching yourself from the feeling.
Yeah.
And then going, okay, well, if someone else is looking at this from an outsider's perspective, third person view, no emotions involved, what's the logical thing to do here? Do you know what? It's probably just a hard conversation. Or do you know what? It's actually, this is just a load of bullshit that you're making up in your head and there's nothing to worry about. Right.
Actually, I remember chatting with Yassine about this, and he said, Ben, do you know what you do? And it was something that I learned a couple of years ago, which was, it's like from Buddhism, it's like the throwing of the second dart. It's like pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So you have an experience with a person, maybe they drop the baton, they let you down, things you disagree, whatever. The pain is there. It's always going to be there. That's normal. What happens is when you replay that incident again and again and stab yourself with that, it's like the pain. It's like I'm replaying that painful emotion, that painful memory, and I'm re-experiencing those feelings and thoughts, which then again that is a part X, manufacturing in your mind, and you're reacting to it. And it's just like,
Yeah.
Wow, explains so much. And it's like that kind of pain is inevitable, suffering's optional. So I'm just going to give you
I've got a tool here. This is going to be, I know we're coming up to time, but I want to, this is a tool that I use, and I think it's going to be beneficial to the guys here to be able to use this. These negative emotional thoughts that we have, we can spend hours ruminating in them, hours and hours. That thought can stay in our head for days. We're still having those thoughts days and days later, right? So knowing that, spending 5 minutes doing this tool, right, could save you a lot of pain inside your head. So the framework here is one I learned from Mark Devine. This is it's a Navy SEAL framework. It's a military framework. It's called OODA, right, which stands for observe, right? So you're observing the thought, right? The second one here is orient. So it's now you're observing it. Do we need to orient in a different direction? Okay. The D stands for decide. So I'm going to decide what I'm going to do here. Am I going to orient in a different direction? What's the decision I'm going to do? Right. And then the A stands for act, right? So what's the action? I'm then going to go and say, I'm going to go and have that conversation, or I'm just going to go and let this down. But this is absolutely worth observing this, these emotions that come up, and then writing this shit down. Pick up the pen, pick up the pad. Right. Okay. Here's the feeling. Observe it. Spend 5 minutes writing it down. If you're spending hours going over this, it's worth the 5 minutes. So OODA, OODA, is a little framework to use there.
That's awesome. We will do a whole session on tools. They're a little bit more, let's say, wonky, creative, right-brained than this is kind of more I've tried to keep it quite logical, linear today. I want to close with sharing that the places where part X will show up most in your life is pre, during, and post-risk. So just before you're about to grow, during growth, and post-growth. So this could be before a date, during a date, and after the date. This can be going on stage, nerves before, it's like crippling anxiety, on the stage, second guessing yourself, and then afterwards giving yourself a hard time, what you didn't say. There's so many things that these are all parts of risk. Now, risk is the most important thing in personal growth. And what we'll do on a future podcast is walk through some tools that you can use to walk into risk. And these will massively assist you in overcoming Part X, creating personal momentum, and what Phil would say, the force of forward momentum in your life and the force of forward motion, and leverage what's called your life force. But we're going to come back to that on a different podcast, because I think this is a standalone, hopefully would have given you the grounding that you needed around Part X. Now, we didn't just do this to introduce a concept and not give you any scaffolding in a way to move forward with it. We've created a program called The Heroic Man, and it's for men just like you, probably listening to this podcast, who want to dip your toe in more of this information. And all you need to do, if you're interested in joining us on what I'm going to be doing, an 8-week experience where we're going to go a mile deep on Part X, and we're going to learn what's called about the shadow and tools to help you overcome some of these inner enemy obstacles, inner obstacles and outer obstacles that have been on your heroic journey. And that's going to be starting at the end of the month. Now, it's one of those things, I'm going to be recording these videos so you can watch them at any time. It's super easy, super digestible, and I'm going to make it so that you can walk through it at any part of your life, and it will give you so much value to help you move forward. So all you need to do to find out more about that is head on over to menspod.com. So menspod.com.
Yeah, menspod.com, and then you'll be able to join the email list and join the Facebook group. All the details are in that.
Yeah, and hopefully I've shared with you a concept that will change your life as it did mine. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
See you guys.